Welcome to maintenance on Triumph 2500 Mark 1, or should that be repairs? And in reality it's neither, because today I'll be fitting an oil cooler, which I happen to have because I was restoring a Dolomite years ago, and when I downsized the Dolomite had to go and I was left with that left over. This falls into the same category. It's a remote oil filter, a Z9 cartridge, which is a Falcon, which makes them very common and cheap. And this car already has one of these on it, but what the one on it doesn't have is the outlets for the oil cooler, and that's an adapter to put on a remote, a spin-on filter. So I'll end up with two filters, yeah. And so that's the adventure for today. And the first thing is to pull the radiator out, because the oil cooler is going to go in front of the radiator. So let's get on with that. Alrighty, time to get this radiator hoses off. There's only one bolt holding the radiator in, and it's the only one that's got a captive nut on it. And so it's time to make a mess with coolant going everywhere. Time to undo the bottom hose, which means coolant everywhere. Yeah, my Toyota and the TR7 have got these modern aluminium things in it. And Dolly's still got one of these old things, basically because I can't get an aluminium one, not very easily. And of course this car doesn't really have a lot of money spent on it, so it doesn't get a fancy aluminium one. Now, oh, it's a heavy bugger. There's a blade missing off that fan. It looks fresh, so maybe I've just done it, and maybe it's been missing for a while. Alrighty then, let's get this old adapter off. Got another air ducting hose in the way. Okay, that's the old adapter off. This one hasn't got the outtake for the oil cooler. Maybe I'll find a fellow Triumph owner who wants it. one sort of square section O-ringy thing. That's the same, I'll probably use the same as the original oil filter. Put a bit of rubber grease on here just to make sure it stays in place during the fitting process. Now, nice new shiny adapter. Won't be that way for all that long. Sure, there'll be a bit of oil and grease that get down in on this. Now, these things won't fit straight up and down because of the slave cylinder, so they've got to be on an angle, so I better just get that angle right. That looks about right to me, so let's tighten the sucker up, eh? Yeah, never surrender to practicality. All these people that get themselves into a car that's high off the ground because it's easy to get into, or a car that's got a lot of boot space because it's practical. Well, none of that rubbish. I'll drive a car that I like, and if I can't get in and out, or it hurts, or it's hard, well, that's just bad luck. If I can't fit the shopping unit or other things like that, well, that's bad luck as well. Not going to compromise on that one. Alright, that's that adapter on. Well, now it's time for this remote oil filter. I had a bracket that I made and had welded and what have you to hold it. It's going on the old battery shelf. Battery's in the boot of this car. So let's do that. One of the challenges of this is this thing's got an in and an out on it, and I can't find out anywhere that tells me which is the in and out on the adapter. So the only thing I can think of is to get all this on, put some oil in it, fill the oil filter up, and then sort of start the sucker and see which one squirts a bit of oil out and turn her off. Oh, I'll have to go with that, I think. Well, that's that on. The oil cooler is a different story altogether. Gonna have to make some brackets, and oh, that's thereabouts where the oil cooler is gonna sit. I need to make some brackets to bolt that in. I'll make a couple of brackets like this, and we'll basically hang off the body that way. And I'll have to make another bracket at the bottom. But don't you just love the modern world? I know, I'm an old bloke. Deliberately went and bought bolts, UNC thread, Imperial thread. I would have bought UNF if they'd had them, but they didn't. I think that's great. Now, problem is, the head of the bolt is a 10mm spanner. Now, I own next to nothing when it comes to metric spanners. Now, Toyota's the first metric car I have, and I don't really work on that. Yeah, all the Triumphs are Imperial. I've never been a great bracket maker. If you look at all my other cars, the brackets are not all that pretty. Sort of like do the job, but don't look nice. I'm trying to rectify that with the dolly in its restoration. And a TR7 to some extent. But this old girl, well, it's been in the family a long time. It's had a very hard life, and I don't know, it sort of fits in with the car to be a bit rough. So yeah, I'll do the best I can, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be all that pretty. But you also won't see it unless you're crawling around under the car. Of course, the big challenge now, having found a fan blade missing on the fan and not having a spare one of them, and I don't know, these Mark 1s seem to have different fans on them every time I see one. So I was planning to put an electric one on it anyway, so the challenge now will be to make a bracket to hold the electric fan on, because I don't like those things that poke through the radiator. They're probably alright and you see them on cars many a time, but it just doesn't seem right to me, so I'll make a bracket. Abstract thought is supposed to be something higher beings like humans have. Well, I was behind the door when they handed it out, so working out which way to bend these sort of things always causes me grief. Well, doesn't look all that flash, but that's it. Still got to drill a hole in there, but I got to line it up on the car, and I got to make another one of them. Well, now I've made a couple more brackets to hold this oil cooler on. I'll try and make them fit. Well, it won't be me because I'm too old, and hopefully nothing will go wrong with this, but whoever pulls this off again is going to curse me because of these mismatched bolts that I bought with a mismatch of metric and imperial heads on them, even though they're UNF thread. Don't you just love working on cars, eh? That was a lot harder than it should have been. Now for the hoses now. and I expect problems with that as well. Well, that's the oil cooler all bolted in. Be in front of the radiator, and yeah, it was a lot harder than it should have been for some reason. I'm not the best bracket maker in the world. Now the hoses need to come off of that, up around behind this bit of body panel and onto here, which is the remote oil filter, and from there they go over down onto the spin-on oil filter and adapter. Now the problem we're going to have here is getting these in the right spot. This is in, this is out, so it's coming from the adapter gadget to here, which ideally should be pointing about that way, and that one should be pointing about that way so it can loop around and go down to the filter. Now that might tighten up roughly in the right spot. This one, it's not going to turn another full turn, so I'll put plenty of plumber's tape around it and hopefully it'll tighten up in the right spot. The problem we have here is getting this pointing in the right direction, and it tightens up. So I'm going to have to put a fair bit of tape on here, and I don't know if that's going to work or not. My life's great mysteries here. I wouldn't have made a plumber. Is working out which way it goes on. That way. I think that's the way it goes on. Let's try it and see. That's the Triumph, and it leaks oil. And look, I can't stop them leaking oil. I know, I'm no mechanic, but I haven't succeeded in stopping them leak oil in all these many years of owning them. It leaks oil from the front oil seal. Now I can change that oil seal. It ain't going to make any difference, it'll still leak. Now I know they get a wear marker on the crankshaft, and I don't know an answer to that. I've heard of things they do, but yeah, I've yet to see anything work. So all these cars, all the cars I own have got a sump guard on them. And yeah, the sump guard does a job of protecting the underbody. But considering I hardly ever drive on dirt roads these days, now that I live in the city, it's only when I go out some sort of car club runs or rallies or something. But what sump guards are really good at is basically being a nappy. They catch that oil. So you pull up somewhere, there's no puddle of oil on the ground, everything looks nice and good. Now, every now and then you're going to pull the sump guard off and clean it, because they get a bit grubby. Let's see if that was enough. This might work. Of course, the question begs to be asked sometimes when I'm doing all this stuff on these cars is, and it's a question you should never ask yourself in relation to just about anything, and that's the dreaded word, why? Let's see how we go here. Sometimes it's more arse than class. Oh my goodness. The old cooler might have been a bugger to put on. I have to say, the luck has been with me on this occasion. Oh my goodness. You're on there. I haven't. Well, one blade missing off this fan. It looks relatively fresh, but I haven't seen a piece of plastic floating around anywhere, so I suspect it's been broken off somewhere at some point. And of course, you don't work on cars without taking bloody skin off. Now there's a great daggy bracket sticking out from the crankshaft here that holds this fan. I reckon that can go too, you know. Well, that should give a bit more room between the radiator and the engine. I think there's plenty of room there for the fans anyway, so all good. Well, now it's time to try and put these bushes on this front sway bar. Well, that's the sway bar bushes done up. That was very painless, much to my surprise. It's nice when something goes easily. Well, what we have here is a pretty well finished job. The spin-on filter and adapter and what have you are on. The pipes are on finger tight till I work out which is in and which is out. I can't do that till I get someone to give me a hand. The remote filter is on, all done up and tight, and the oil cooler is on and done. All the hoses are cable tied and kept away from sharp edges. So we're done and dusted with the oil cooler and related work. And down under the car, of course, besides the steering rack and all the other work that I did in the previous episode, the bushes on the sway bar have done. So between the rack and tie rod ends and universal joints up the steering column and sway bar bushes, this car should actually be noticeable in its feel on the road. Should feel more direct and tight. So all is good. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. Tune in same duck time, same duck channel next time, when we'll be putting the radiator in and some electric fans and a fancy controller that'll turn them on and off, and hopefully get the old girl going again. Bye for now.